Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well on this fine sunny afternoon. I'd like to wish you a very warm welcome from the recruitment advertising team here at Prospectus. I hope you can all see me and my colleagues. This is a webinar, so we can't see you, which is a real shame, but that's the way these things work. But hopefully you can see us and you can hear us okay as well. Just going to take you through some housekeeping for this session. There will be a couple of questions for you to engage with throughout, so please do look out for those. And please do use the chat function labeled Q&A along the bottom bar, where you can add questions throughout the session. And you also have the opportunity to upvote those questions that people add if there's something that you really want us to address at the end, and we'll look at those towards the end of the session and we'll get through as many of those as we can. So please do add your sessions to that, and we can cover them off later on. So I am going to take you briefly through today's agenda. I've already given you a few kind of hints and tips on the housekeeping. But we'll start with some introductions for those of you who don't already know us. My name is Kieran Bangle and I'm the Advertising Director within the business at Prospectus. I've been in the advertising industry for over 25 years now, and I'm really proud to say that 14 of those have been within Prospectus. Very proud to work here, great organisation, absolutely love it. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Nick Bellamy. He's the advertising client partner. He developed his career by working with several well-known media channels over the years, household name media channels, and he's been with us for 5 years. And Natasha Pearson in the corner there, she joined us a couple of years ago as a trainee, and is now beginning to develop her career as an account manager, providing recruitment solutions to the not-for-profit sector. So here we all are in picture form with our QR codes, with lovely big smiles. Hopefully you can see those. Please do feel free to link in with us, connect with us. If you're not already linked in and connected with us, it's a great opportunity for us all to make connections. So, thank you, Nick. For those of you who may not know so much about Prospectus, I'm just going to give you a very brief introduction. Prospectus is known within the not-for-profit sector as a specialist recruitment business, supporting both candidates and clients to find and place great talent to connect people with purpose. We're really proud that as a business, we help organisations hire across all functions and at every level of their organisation. And that can be the placement of temps, both long and short term, board members, senior executives, chief executives, director level, and specialist fundraising positions, to name just a few. That's what makes us tick. It's what we're good at, and it's what we really love to do. We have expert consultants and account managers within specialist teams working to support our clients. However, today it's the service of the recruitment advertising team we're here about. It's what we want to share with you, and it's the value that we would hope to bring to your organisations. Being a recognised and accredited advertising agency puts us in a unique and really fortunate position. It means we're able to offer our clients every possible solution to allow them to hire great talent into their respective organisations. And the knowledge of the sector and the data that we hold allows us to provide well thought out solutions to suit your needs. Our roles with clients is very much around tailoring and providing external media approaches to help your organisations reach that talent. And we do that through clear messaging, compelling copy, and use of brand and creative across a multitude of media channels. Bear with me one moment. As you can see from this, oh, sorry, would you go back one for me, please, Nick? Thank you. As you can see from this slide, we're a team of 60 consultants and account managers. We have actually been going for 65 years, which is a long time. Surprisingly, even before I was born, and I'm one of the oldest people here at Prospectus. And more importantly for us, and hopefully for you too, is that we serve only one sector, and that's the not-for-profit sector. Thank you. Perfect timing. My faithful colleague there. We are proud to say that we're the first recruitment business to be accredited as B Corp back in 2016, which means that we're a company that meets the highest standards of social and environmental performance. We're a zero commission agency, which means that our teams are not incentivized by monthly bonuses, and it allows them to focus on providing the best solutions for our clients. And on the advertising team alone, we purchase approximately £2 million worth of media a year for over 2,000 and place over 2,500 vacancies across social media and job boards across the UK and sometimes globally. Here you can see a wheel of our added value services that we provide, and these are all connected to the recruitment cycle. And they're all about recruitment advertising and candidate attraction. It's focused around being creative, offering insights and advice, ensuring efficiency and optimization within the advertising and attraction process. And it's what myself and my colleagues do every day. I'm not going to go through the whole of this now, but it is something that we're going to share with you later on, and will allow you to review that in your own time. But for now, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Natasha, who is going to take you through some recent market insights. Natasha.
Many thanks, Kieran. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to kick off today with a poll question, which hopefully should appear on your screens shortly. And it should ask, what day of the week do you think a vacancy receives the most exposure? So effectively, which day of the week do you think a job advert performs best in terms of engagements, of views and apply clicks? You should have answers which are different days of the week. Have a think about this, and whilst you're submitting your answers, I'm going to kick us off and we'll come back and discuss the answer in a short while. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you the latest market insights, trends, and data to give you a really clear snapshot of what's going on in terms of recruitment, both within and outside of the charity sector. If you have any questions about the data shown on the next few slides, please do feel free to either pop a comment in the Q&A box down below, or do follow up with myself and the team afterwards. So our friends over at Charity Job have shared with us their reports on job activity and salary research. We've analysed this data, and we're going to share with you today some of the key insights on what's going on in the charity-specific recruitment market. So there's no doubt in the charity sector that the job market has become more competitive amongst candidates, with increased competition alongside a slowly decreasing amount of top charity jobs. After being in a candidate-led market since the COVID years, the data that we've looked over today really notes a turn of the corner towards an employer-led market for the first time since 2020. Here at Prospectus, we know it's been a real struggle for organisations to recruit in the recent past. However, the market is now changing, and there are signs that we're starting to see some positive changes for employers, and we will go over that on the next few slides. So looking at the key statistics that you should see on your screen at the moment, there's been a significant increase in both the number of active candidates on Charity Job and new candidate registrations, both of which are now up 25% year on year. Couple this as well, the average number of apply clicks on a job has now risen to 43. So that is about 59% up year on year too. So coupling this, there's been a 22% decrease in job adverts actually being placed on the site. I mean, this now means that there's more qualified individuals vying for fewer positions, really making the recruitment process more challenging for candidates. At Prospectus, we are seeing the knock-on effect of this. When we're posting job adverts, we're starting to see a dramatic increase in terms of views and redirects, with your branded average adverts now getting about 854 views and 43 redirects. So this is really the perfect storm for creating the shift towards an employer-led market, and it's now indicating that we're starting to enter a period of stabilization in terms of recruitment from the employer side. So just taking a quick pause. Many thanks to everyone for submitting your poll answers. Hopefully you should be able to see some of the answers coming up on the screen at the moment. I think we can. Interesting. Yeah, definitely had the right idea. I think a lot of you voted towards Monday there, and you would be correct. So our data shows, as you'll see on the screen here, Monday is the best day for job postings. We really see a peak at the beginning of the week and then a gradual decline in terms of candidate engagement as we go towards the weekend. So bearing this in mind, not only is there now increased competition amongst candidates, in terms of candidate behaviour, we're now also seeing a rise in candidate confidence. The Charity Job Annual Pay Report recently revealed that 74% of charity professionals received a salary increase in the last year, and many of them are expecting further growth. Additionally, 59% of those surveyed are actively job hunting, and a further 26% aren't actively job hunting yet, but indicated that they would be open to moving to a new job within the next 12 months. So this is really highlighting a rise in candidate desire for career advancement. And this was cited by 65% of respondents as their reason for job hunting, alongside 40% who said skills advancement, and a further 78% said higher salary. But despite all these talks of salary increases, it is worth mentioning that when looking at the average salary of job adverts that are being marked as entry level or junior on Charity Job, both inside and outside of London, so UK-wide, 67% of these on the advert, the role actually said it paid below the UK living wage. Now, bear in mind, that's not the government national minimum wage. This is calculated by the Living Wage Foundation in order of what people actually need to earn to afford a decent standard of living. What's also really notable is that all but one category on Charity Jobs had an increase in average salary, with finance being the only category that didn't have an increase. It technically actually had a 1% decrease year on year. However, as finance remains the most highly paid category on Charity Job, this just indicates that it's a really competitive market for charity finance roles. And in terms of these kind of shifting market dynamics, last year there were 48,000 full-time paid roles that got uploaded onto Charity Job. And some of the key changes and trends that we've seen with these is that there's been a 44% increase in job adverts that are marked as hybrid working. That's up 35% year on year. And following that trend, jobs that are being tagged as remote now receive 8 times more clicks than on-site roles and 4 times more clicks than hybrid roles. So bearing that in mind, that's been a great insight into the charity sector. We're now going to take a look across recruitment for all sectors. So as you can see on the screen, Indeed have shared some key trends. And an emerging theme across this is that there's been a real talent pool growth, creating a great opportunity for employers currently looking to hire, with over 70% of candidates surveyed on Indeed indicating that they would be open to new opportunities. This is a sign that we can expect these talent pools to have further growth in the coming months. However, keep in mind this increased enthusiasm for new opportunities. There has also been some reinforcement from candidates that employers need to streamline their application processes, with half of surveyed candidates rating them as too long or too complicated. Other key factors to bear in mind when candidates are job hunting is salary transparency, which was cited by 74% of respondents, and also more information around the interview processes, which was cited by 28% of respondents. And finally, taking a look at total jobs, they're also seeing a major growth in terms of their talent pool, supported by one of their recent reports, which revealed there's a 32% increase in visits to their site. This really demonstrates another strong candidate interest on their platform. The sentiment's also echoed by the fact that 1.2 million CVs were updated in the last quarter, bringing their total to 25.8 million CVs on their database. And obviously a knock-on effect of this has seen a 37% increase in applications per job year on year. So we've shown you data from 3 of the large, well-known and highly used job boards. However, at Prospectus, we do work with a huge range of local, regional, national job boards and social media channels. So if you are interested in any additional data that we've not shown today, please do get in touch with us. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Kieran, who's going to take you through some candidate insights.
Thank you very much, Natasha. So Natasha's talked to you about some of the insights that we received from some of our media, but actually at Prospectus, we're really well positioned because we speak to candidates and hiring managers all of the time. And we get an opportunity to have those conversations and understand those motivations and career priorities. And we felt that we had this plethora of information and data, and we really wanted to do something with that. So we actually have started, we did this last year as well, and again this year, we've actually started to send out our own Prospectus survey to people within the not-for-profit sector, candidates and clients alike, and our wider network. And it's something that we aim to revisit every year, and it's so that we can provide detailed analysis in areas such as job functions, industries and salary levels. And the analysis really offers us valuable insights to share with the sector, and it helps us facilitate discussions about topics such as flexible working and salary expectations. This information I'm going to share with you now, the results are literally just in. We've only just finished analysing our survey results for 2024. And I'm going to share a small snapshot. I knew I wasn't going to be able to say snapshot well, and I said I was going to change it and I didn't. A small snapshot of some of the information that we've gathered. And just to put it into context, we actually took this from 1,200 respondents. And as I said, it's due to be published soon. So I'm just going to take you through, thank you, through the 2 questions. And one of the first questions that we posed was, what would be the main factor in people's decisions to move into their next roles? And you can see here the 3 main reasons for people considering leaving a role were better career progression opportunities, flexible working opportunities, and not surprisingly, salary. And it is a common perception that people come into the not-for-profit sector for more than money. The above results and our conversations with candidates do attest to this. Salary does still rank highly as a reason for people wanting to move on from a role. The data also shows us that people on a lower salary, and given the cost of living crisis in the UK, are more likely to be feeling the brunt of financial hardship, and consequently are more likely to leave a role for a better salary. I haven't shown the graph here, but our survey also showed that only around half of the people that we surveyed had received a salary increase between 2 to 4% in the last 12 months, which also means, bear with me, I've lost my slide, which also means that half didn't. And although there might be a number of reasons why this is, different cases for different organisations, clearly the cost of living has really been an issue for people and why they would consider a move. Thank you, Nick. And this second survey question was really about salary as well. And we wanted to ask people within the not-for-profit sector what they thought about salaries. Are they too high? Are they too low? Or are they just about right? You can see some of the comments here from different respondents. You know, a lot of people thought they were far too low. They earned 50% of the salary that they would in the commercial sector. And again, so many comments on the other side there about salaries might be just right, but we're expected to do an awful lot for the salary that we receive. So it isn't a real surprise from the respondents. They do believe that the pay in the sector is too low. This sentiment reflects concerns about the compensation levels compared to the demands and responsibilities. And they did make comparisons to high levels of pay in the private sector and a need to be competitive to attract talent. The respondents' comments echo the results from the earlier question about the main factor for changing roles. And while salary is important, flexible working arrangements and a sense of being valued can mitigate the drawbacks of lower salary. However, concern still remains about the ability to attract the right talent given the salary level, given the current salary levels. I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Nick, who's going to take you through some best practice in advertising.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Kieran. Really appreciate that and super interesting. And like we said, that survey is going to be coming out and being published in a few weeks' time, so do look out for that. Firstly, we're going to start off with another quick poll question here. So what I would like to do, hopefully a poll's popped up on all your screens. And what I'd like to do is rank in order or mark the 3 most important things that you think are most important to you as an organization when going out to an advert to hire for a new role, and what is your approach and methodology. So like I said, mark the most three important on there, and what we'll do is we will come back to that after the next couple of slides. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is best practices in advertising. So there's a couple of bits I'm going to touch on, but the first point that we really wanted to make and emphasize, obviously being part of the recruitment advertising process and advertising over 2,500 roles every year, we've got a real understanding of the job market and of the recruitment advertising market specifically, and what works best and what's going to get you the best returns as an organization. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was keeping it simple. Now we understand that each of your organizations is really unique, with lots of different internal processes, teams and departments. But what we notice sometimes when clients are looking to go out to external advertising is that because of the uniqueness of your organizations, sometimes this can result in job titles being a little, shall we say, quirky, I guess. And while internally that's absolutely fine, you know, every organization has different job titles, when it comes to external recruitment and recruitment advertising, it can possess a bit of a challenge. What we would advise is when you go out and you're looking to go out to recruit and to advertise, we would want you to think about, you know, how many candidates are likely to search for the job title that you've got on that copy, on that advert copy. And, you know, is it a known job title outside of your organization? And if the answer is no to those questions, it might be worth reconsidering your job title before going out to advertise. Now, sometimes what we do with certain organizations is, even if they've got a job title internally that they use, we will advise them on an external job title, and then maybe at the top of an advert copy, caveat that saying, please note internally, this role is called X, Y, or Z. And what we'd suggest as well is, you know, speak to those teams internally to ask if they were looking for that role externally, what they would use, what job titles they would search. And if you are, you know, unsure about job titles, do reach out to us here at Prospectus. Like we said, you know, we advertise over 2,500 roles a year, so we've got a really good understanding of what job titles work well externally. So next, I'm going to talk about best practices in advertising and in the advert copy itself. So obviously we just discussed job titles there, and it's really crucial to think about that. But it's also super important to actually invest time and effort in supporting your hiring managers and your team with advert copy. And the reason for this is, you know, it might be the first time a candidate's encountered your organization. And this is a chance for you to really bring both your organization and the role itself to life. So firstly, in terms of a structure and a layout of an advert copy, would suggest the factual information. So that obviously includes the job title, your salary, and the location as well, and if that role's hybrid, and if so, really make it clear that that role's hybrid. As Tash mentioned earlier, lots of people are looking for hybrid roles in the market now, and so you really want to make it clear and stand out to candidates that your job is hybrid if it is. Next, you want to talk about your organization. So this is really, really powerful when it comes to advert copy. What we would advise and suggest is including a short paragraph that breaks down your organization's mission, its cause and values, as these will have a significant influence on whether candidates will apply and have a connection to your cause. If you've got any data and information about your organization's impact as well, it can really make your pitch as an organization even stronger. When candidates are working in the charity sector, as I'm sure you all know, part of the reason they're doing it is for the cause and for the love of the sector. So really selling yourself as an organization is super important. Secondly, we advise that you have an inclusive statement. So your EDI statement should emphasize the importance of a diverse workforce, making it clear that everyone can feel that they belong at your organization. And depending on how your organization works, if you're working within the community, for example, talking about how you want to represent the communities that you work within can be a really powerful message. And it shows, that this isn't just a passing thought, but it's something that really goes through all the work that you do. Next, the role itself, obviously an important part of an advert copy. So what we advise here is, once again, a short paragraph that paints a picture of what the role looks like on a day-to-day basis for candidates. Now, this is your chance to really bring that role to life. You want to make it clear, compelling, and engaging to candidates. And if there's really exciting projects that you're working on, or working with some really interesting organizations, for example, this is your chance to sort of sell your job to candidates. A couple of things we'll probably advise avoiding, and one of them is directly copying from the job description itself, as you'd like to think candidates going to have a read of your job description. And what you don't want to do is sort of overraw potential candidates with a really long list of bullet points in terms of what a job entails. And also what you want to think about here is focusing on using sort of relevant keywords that candidates will search for when looking for jobs. Because what this will do is, when candidates are on Google, for example, searching for a role, it'll increase your search engine optimization. So it's something to think about, inputting some of those keywords. Next, it's the About You section. So this is, focusing on the key essential skills that a candidate needs for the role itself. So we'd advise, talking about 3 or 4 key skills, once again, in a short paragraph, that are vital for the success of the role. And once again, it's really important to not overwhelm applicants with a really long, exhaustive list. You want to keep it open and broad. And what you also want to think about here is, thinking about transferable skills to attract candidates that potentially are in a wider, diverse pool of candidates, potentially aren't necessarily working in the sector at the moment, but are interested in joining the charity sector or the beyond profit sector too. Next, the benefits. So, benefits provide a true and positive picture of what your organization offers, and, including details about your culture and friendly atmosphere. So flexible working arrangements, for example, or maternity and paternity leave. And as was mentioned earlier, thinking about that career progression and learning and development opportunities potentially within the organization can potentially make a difference on whether or not a candidate applies for your role. And what you want to think about here as well is, remember that when you're thinking about your benefits and what benefits you have as an organization, benefits do extend beyond just monetary rewards. So, speak to your staff, and if there's things you go, what do you think, what benefits do you see of working here? There might be things that you might not think of, but there's benefits, so to speak, but some of your staff really, really do and really value. So utilize those. And then finally, your call to action. So even though the candidate job market is changing, it's still really important that you simplify the application process as much as possible. And as Tash mentioned earlier, 49% of candidates, so half of candidates, find recruitment application processes too long. So what you want to ask yourself is, do you have an application process that's easy to use? When was the last time you went through that process yourself to see how easy it is to use at the moment? Like, do you have application forms, for example? Do you need to have application forms? We know one of the candidates' pet hates when going through the application process, and it comes up time and time again, is having to copy and paste their CV information into application forms. So really think about that and think about how your application process is and whether or not that happens, and maybe is there an opportunity to simplify that process? Because the easier the application process, the more likely a candidate is to apply for your role. And then the last thing to touch on here is just the length of your advert. So you really want to keep an advert to a maximum of 1 page of A4. Candidates, there's been lots of data and lots of research around this, but candidates typically spend only 14 seconds looking at a job advert. So you really want to make it short, sharp, and snappy in order to, get that candidate's attention when they're searching on job boards, on social media for their next role. Next, in the best practices in advertising, we're going to talk about job descriptions. So a job description itself can be as much as a barrier to candidates deciding to apply for a role as the advert copy itself. At Prospectus, we support numerous organisations with inclusive reviews of job descriptions. So what we do there is we ensure the language used in those job descriptions is welcoming and inclusive, and gives more of an opportunity for candidates from underrepresented groups to apply. So there's a couple of key points that we recognise that come up time and time again when we're looking at job descriptions. And the first one is the relevance of skills, knowledge and experience. So when you're writing a job description or reviewing your job descriptions internally, are the qualifications that are listed there, are they truly essential to the role's responsibilities? Avoiding non-essential and exclusionary specifications such as degree requirements and specific years of experience or industry-specific experience can really help potentially broaden your candidate pool. As once again, like I mentioned earlier about transferable skills, many candidates might possess the transferable skills that meet your needs, but highlighting the need for a degree or specific experience within the charity sector, for example, could discourage them from applying for the role. So by thinking about this, it will hopefully help to attract a more diverse candidate pool. Next is gender biased language. So job descriptions often contain unconscious gender bias that you might not be aware of. Us here at Prospectus, for example, we use a gender bias decoder. The one that we use is called Cat Macfield, and it basically helps identify and eliminate biased language, and it will tell you if it's a masculine coded copy or feminine coded copy. And basically what you can do is a quick search on Google, search gender bias decoder, and you'll be able to find one yourself, and you can just copy and paste your job description into there, and it will let you know if it's more masculine or feminine coded. And then finally, jargon and abbreviations. So you really want to avoid complex language and sector-specific jargon in your job descriptions and also your advert copy as well. The reason for this is, this can be really off-putting and exclusionary to those that may not be in the sector or, may not know the work that you do as an organization. And if you keep the language simple and minimize the use of abbreviations, it just makes the job description more accessible for all. And once again, hopefully increasing the likelihood of candidates from outside the sector applying. And that means, increasing the diversity within the beyond profit sector as well. Next, I'm going to talk about data. So I am a bit of a data geek. I love Excel spreadsheets, pivot tables. I love analyzing data. And I really do believe, you know, that old adage, data is king, is true. Now, we work with lots of organizations, you know, big and small. So we completely understand that every organization is different and you've got, you know, your own unique recruitment needs and challenges. However, being as data-led as you possibly can significantly enhance your recruitment process. And this is some of the sort of the key ways in which leveraging data can help. So firstly, targeted advertising. So as I've mentioned a number of times, you know, we advertise thousands of roles every year on behalf of our clients, and we're constantly collecting data on where candidates are getting the best returns on investment when it comes to engagement, you know, looking at views and redirects from lots of different media and understanding that. So by reviewing and analyzing recruitment data, what you can do is you can gain insights into where your current candidates are coming from. And this allows you to identify, you know, the most effective advertising channels to reach a wider and more diverse candidate pool, for example. You know, if you notice that you're getting a really high success rate from one job board or social media platform, it might be worth focusing more of your efforts and budget on those areas to maximize your reach and impact compared to a job board that you might not be getting that sort of engagement from. Secondly, identifying drop-off points. So if you're in a position where, you know, you've got an ATS system, an applicant tracking system, for example, and you're able to analyze the data there, you know, using your reporting and understanding where candidates drop off in the recruitment process can be really helpful. You know, tracking candidate engagement at each stage from application submission, initial screening, interviews, and identifying where there's any potential large drop-off points or barriers can be really helpful in making your application process more accessible. You know, are candidates dropping off after the initial interview? Are they incomplete? Are they not completing their application forms? Is there a barrier there that you need to assess? And pinpointing these stages can allow you to make targeted improvements and streamline the process and keep candidates engaged. And then finally, diversity and inclusion metrics. So, you know, being able to track your diversity metrics throughout the recruitment process to see how well you're attracting and retaining candidates from underrepresented communities is really important. And once again, you know, if you've got ATS systems, being able to analyze that data can help you identify any barriers or in your recruitment process and hopefully take steps to address them. For instance, you know, you might find that a certain demographic group are underrepresented in your applicant pool, or they might drop off at a specific stage of your applicant pool. And once again, being able to realize that and then, you know, have a look into it and work out potentially a reason for that can be really helpful. And basically, by leveraging data in these ways, it helps make informed decisions and also enhance your recruitment strategy, and hopefully, you know, more importantly, improve candidate experience, and ultimately as well build a more diverse and talented workforce, which is what we all want. And what I would say with this, and like I said, you know, completely understand everybody's on sort of a different part of their journey when it comes to recruitment and recruitment advertising and EDI and data as well. And we're here to help you on that journey. You know, like I said, we support large organizations, smaller organizations, and everyone in between, analyzing whatever data you have and utilizing the data that we have here at Prospectus to make informed decisions on the best places to advertise your roles externally, to get the best return on investment and also reach the widest, most diverse candidate pool. So now coming back to the final poll question that we had earlier, hopefully that's going to pop up on the screen in a second. There you go. So interesting stuff. Great. So in terms of your approach to advertising and your approach to recruitment advertising, us here at Prospectus, we have a methodology that we believe works really, really well and hopefully we can give you some of those hints and tips here. So it's really interesting that, you know, you all mentioned about how do we reach candidates. That's one of the main multiple choice answers there, which, yep, spot on. But it's interesting that the other sort of 4 answers are split pretty evenly. So us here at Prospectus, our methodology of recruitment for recruitment advertising stays the same, no matter who the client is or what the role is as well. From an administrator to a director, the methodology stays the same, and so should yours as well. Firstly, you want to establish what are a candidate's motivations. So understanding why candidates want to work for your organization. Is it because of your organization's reputation, the benefits on offer, or the opportunities for career progression? Secondly, where are these candidates? Identifying where your target candidates are located. You know, are they based in London? Or with new remote working environments, can they be based further afield? The broader the reach, you know, can help attract a more diverse candidate pool. And how are you going to target them? Is it through social media? Is it through job board advertising? And thirdly, how do you reach them? So how do you actually target the most diverse candidate pool possible? Are they looking on those job sites? Are they passive job seekers or active job seekers? Once again, like I mentioned, are they looking on social media? You know, what's the best way to reach them? And we truly believe by using this methodology for all your roles being advertised, we can help and we can suggest, you know, the best media channels, and you can start to think of, you know, where can we find these? Where are these candidates? What are their motivations? How do we reach them? It will give you the best opportunity to get your advert in front of the audience that you're looking to target. So conscious I've been chatting away for a little bit there. Hopefully you've learned something from those insights and from that best practice. I'm now going to pass you back to Kieran, who's going to answer a question. Kieran, you're on mute at the moment.
Didn't I just know that was going to happen? Typical Kieran Bangle. Sorry, everybody. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Natasha. I'm just going to go to some questions. When we initially sent out the invitation for Eventbrite, we asked people if they wanted to post some questions, and a really good question came up that I wanted, I thought everybody would value from hearing about. We actually don't know who sent that in because the name wasn't shared. So if it was somebody that's here today, thank you very much. It's a great question. And Natasha's going to tell us what that question is and take us through it.
Yes, so we'd had a question through about what are the best channels to really target marginalized groups. So this is a fairly common question, and we know that's on the mind of a lot of the charities that we work with. And of course, at the moment, everyone is working really hard to ensure that their organization is reflective of society and the communities that you might serve at your organization as well. But there's not really one simple answer to this question. It can really depend on the requirements of your vacancy. And before we'd make any recommendations, we'd really think about, for instance, Nick's methodology approach that we showed you earlier here, and we'd apply that before making recommendations. There's been a bit of debate around utilising the diversity-specific sites, many of which you've probably seen popping up in the recent years. And these could be an option for advertising. However, what we would say is one single approach or one single media channel is not the answer. In our experience and looking at some of the great data that we have to hand, using social media alongside some sector-specific media with the right messaging and use of your brand and representative images, that will really enhance an advertising campaign. So if this is something that we could help you with, please do reach out and we'd be really happy to pick up further conversations.
Thank you, Natasha. Hopefully that's answered that question. I'm going to go to the questions and answers chat box. We're going to have a look at what people have asked throughout. We've got the first question came from Zaybak. Hope I've said that right, Zaybak. Thanks for sending that question. And this came on the back of some of the data Natasha shared earlier, and she's asked, do you have any data on the average length of tenure in the role against those searching for jobs? We do actually, and it's on the survey that we've run through Prospectus. But I don't have that in front of me now, unfortunately, but I do know that that's one of the things that we have a response to. So I would be more than happy to share that information with you afterwards. It's definitely one of the questions we asked, and we've got some quite detailed information around it. So more than happy to do that. And secondly, the question was, are these data from people who already work for the not-for-profit sector? Yes, all of the information that I shared when I was talking about candidate motivations was from people from within the not-for-profit sector, and all of the data that Natasha shared that came from Charity Job was 100% from the not-for-profit sector. The data from Indeed and Total Jobs was generic across the UK and not specifically targeted towards one sector. So they're the questions we've had in. I don't know if anybody has any more. Okay. Felix says, where can we find the recording for this webinar? I will leave that to my wonderful marketing team to deal with after this this session has completed, because I'm sure that there will be a recording available. And is there another one? Okay. I'm going to ask Nick, maybe you could respond to this one. How do you reach candidates in rural areas who may not be familiar with online job platforms?
Hi, thank you for that, Kieran, and Jake, thank you for your question there. Yeah, really good question. So it's an interesting one. So us here at Prospectus, we support organisations up and down the country, you know, from London all the way up into Scotland and Devon and everywhere in between. And yes, sometimes, you know, those roles that are in rural areas can certainly be challenging. What we do here at Prospectus is, you know, we look at every role bespokely, and we'll have a look at firstly the role itself and where the role's being advertised. Because of our knowledge of working with, you know, over 250 media channels a year, we have a great knowledge of local job boards as well as your more generic online job boards. But also, one thing that we find really powerful when advertising in more sparsely populated areas is social media and the power of social media. You know, everybody's got with them. The majority of people have a mobile phone. Most people are, you know, scrolling social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, for example. And we find real power in being able to advertise and target candidates based in localities on social media. And depending on what the roles is, you know, that is the way that we tend to advise if people aren't necessarily looking at your online job boards, so to speak. And what we do see as well when we advertise on social media platforms is we're, like I said, you know, we can target via location. And what happens is people will pick up that, people will see it on certain social media platforms, and people will share that, or they'll at people in it as well. And you know, and what tends to happen is it's almost like a snowball effect where, oh, so and so, you might be interested in this role. And yes, so that's what we would advise, Jake. And if you want more information after about social media advertising and how we can help and support with that, do reach out.
Okay, lovely. I've got some comments here. So I've got a comment from Nav Gudra. Hello, Nav. Nice to hear from you. Excellent session. Thanks so much. You rightly highlighted various challenges for us as in-house recruiters. As recruitment experts yourselves, do you have any tips on maintaining resilience in such a tricky employment market? That's a very good question, Nav. That is a tricky question, actually. I think in the sector, we've all seen over the last few years, certainly after the pandemic, there was a real resilience having to be shown by most organisations, and it was throughout every aspect of their organisation, having to stay true to your values, but also having to remain resilient when so many organisations and so many people had to kind of really restructure. The funding wasn't there. They weren't able to support the communities they normally serve, plus their own internal staff. So I think there's a strength that comes from being in the not-for-profit sector when the chips are down, and there's that resilience and that kind of that real seal that has to come out. And I think it comes from within each organization, I feel. And I think it also comes from the strength of the leadership within your organizations and the strength of the board to really help support your strategies and kind of riding out those tough times, which we know, because we only work in the sector, how, you know, how we do within the not-for-profit sector, you know, come up against that all the time. So if there is a sector actually that has the gusto and the resilience to kind of ride out the tough times, I always think it is within the not-for-profit sector. So and when it comes to the job market, it's really working with partners and really, you know, listening to your internal staff and teams when it comes to recruitment, why people might not be joining the organization, or why you might have you know, retention issues within an organization. It's actually always comes back to communication and listening to the internal staff and understanding, and then having the courage to act upon what you might hear, because it's not always going to be positive when the times are hard. Having you know, the ability to listen and to act upon what you know you might need to change internally to help your organization move forward. So that's my ramblings on how I feel about that question you've asked. But no, thank you very much for asking it. And Santina has asked, how long should a vacancy be advertised to get the best response or the right level of engagement? Tasha, Nick?
Yeah, I'll happily jump in again here. Thanks for your question, Santina, and yeah, thanks for yours as well, Nav, by the way. I think just on Nav's point too, you know, talking to colleagues and peers also in other organizations is a really good thing to do as well. And us here at Prospectus are always connecting people with different organizations together, and if you want us to be part of that to help you connect with other people as well, we're more than happy to. Yeah, Santina, in regards to your question, how long a vacancy should be advertised in order to get the right level of engagement, what we suggest and we advise our clients that you should advertise for between 2 to 3 weeks. The reason being is any longer than that period, and if someone's applied for a role, you know, if someone's looking for a job and they apply for your role on the first day, for example, but you've got your advert open for a month and you're not looking at applications and shortlisting till the end of that process, they will be looking for other jobs at the same time, and you might lose those candidates. So yeah, so we would normally advise 2 to 3 weeks. And also with that as well, it gives you the opportunity with the majority of job boards, you can advertise for up to 30 days. So, you know, if you advertise a role for 2 and 3 weeks, you have a bit of urgency in that process, you get people applying. And then what you can do is, and what we do with our clients is, you know, we will always keep in touch and feed them back data in terms of how roles are performing externally. And if you're still struggling for potential candidates towards the end of that process, you can always extend that role for an extra week as well. And, you know, once again, because of the amount of media and the relationships that we have with media in the sector, what we can sometimes do is lean on them a little bit and say, oh, do you think you could give that a little boost here? So yeah, so we would suggest 2 to 3 weeks of advertising is the best amount of time to go for from them. And, you know, in an ideal world, if you're shortlisting throughout that process as well, that can be really helpful, because it means that you might not lose candidates that are applying for roles too. But yeah, an advertising length of 2 to 3 weeks.
Lovely, thank you very much, Nick. I think that might have been our last question, and I think
we've got one more from Jake, it looks like.
Oh, you have got one, okay. Thank you so much for your helpful answer to my previous question. Follow-up, is it better to keep the organisation you are recruiting for anonymous or not? It depends on which aspect you're coming to us with that for. So if are you advertising for your own organisation and you want your organisation to know who you are, then absolutely use your brand, and don't be anonymous. People want to know the organisation that you're working for. If that's the answer to the question, unless I've misread it. Nick, Natasha, yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, being open and honest with your organisation, at the end of the day, if someone's applying for a role, eventually they're going to have to know who the organisation is that they're working for. So, you know, being open and honest, and, you know, when you are advertising externally, even though it is recruitment, it is also branding for your organization as well, right? You know, people might not have heard of your organization, but if they see a logo and, oh, that looked quite interesting, and do a bit more research, and even if they don't end up applying for your role, you know, one day they might end up giving you, you know, do some fundraising for you, or giving you some fundraising that way. So if you've got a brand, use it. At the end of the day, you know, your brand recognition is really important, and it can really help.
Jake, I see that you're probably a recruiter yourself, in which case I understand you don't necessarily always brand because of the relationship between agency and recruiter. So I can see why you wouldn't want to, as a recruiter, brand for the organisation, because there's always that kind of risk of people going to organisations directly. So from your perspective as a recruiter, I would agree that you're not necessarily going to brand. But as organisations who are doing their own advertising, then definitely utilize the strength of your brand to help you recruit into your roles 100%. And I think that takes us very, very neatly into 3 minutes to 3. And we are at the end of this session. So I would like to say thank you very much, firstly, to all of you for attending. I truly hope you've benefited from spending this hour with us. I hope you've all taken away a couple of nuggets of information that might help you within your recruitment processes, and give you a bit more understanding and insights of what's going on within the sector right now, candidates, motivations, and just some of the ways that we can support with your recruitment advertising processes in the future. Thank you, Nick and Natasha, very much for sharing your information and knowledge with us as well.
Thank you.
And we will be following up with a very short survey and some information as a follow-up from this too. And again, yes, thank you so much. And goodbye from me, goodbye from Nick, and goodbye from Natasha. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.